What's up, everybody, and welcome to the SP and Bushy Show. We are back. It's two friends who started up a podcast, and we are glad you joined us. Bushy, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling really good, man. I mean, it's just we're hitting the time. I mean, really, we got to start thinking about it. I mean, college football is literally a week away, man. We're going to have actual college football now, and none of this COVID related stuff that we had last year where it was, where some teams played in September, some teams didn't. It's exciting. We're just going to have a full slate of like college football games, man, from here on. And, preseason is coming to an end as well. And we're going to get actual NFL football games again.
Absolutely. So exciting. Can't wait for football season to finally be upon us. We're going to do probably an NCAA breakdown next week. So that's going to be very exciting. Obviously, we're both huge NCAA football fans. So very excited for this to happen. And now, I mean,
and obviously you're excited too, showing off the CSU Pueblo backdrop,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, showing off the CSU Pueblo backdrop, shout out to CSU Pueblo.
Absolutely. Shout out to CSU Pueblo. Like I said, my place of employment, and I love it there. So
Yes.
I can't complain at all about it. Also, very good college football team.
Yes, a very good Division II college football team. They're very good. They made the playoffs last year, I believe, right? Or was it 2 years ago?
2 years ago, yeah.
2 years ago, yeah. So they made the playoffs 2 years ago. They're really probably one of the stronger college football teams in the state of Colorado. I know people talk about like the 1A teams of CU and CSU, but really, I mean, I think some of the best college football actually is in Division II with Colorado School of Mines and CSU Pueblo.
Yeah, absolutely. Those two teams kind of been battling it out for the RMAC. CSU Pueblo has been winning it more often than not. But that said, I think 2 years ago, the Mines actually did get them for it. So
yes, and they always seem to be making the playoffs. So it's always a great thing. And really, that, to be honest, I mean, that's the best college football. Really, you want to see, go to Division II. Really, you don't need to go to Folsom or whatever the CSU new CSU stadium is, or Air Force Academy. No, take a drive down to Pueblo, take a drive up to Golden, go see Colorado School of Mines, go see CSU Pueblo. That's really where the best college football probably is.
absolutely, Bushy. So if you want to come on down, watch some.
I'm ready. Yes, I'm ready.
At
yes,
the Thunderbolt, come join us.
We'll figure it out. Yeah, we'll do an SP and Bushy, kind of mini show. Yeah, at CSU Pueblo. I'm ready. Let's do it.
Excited.
Yeah,
I get to tailgate
I'm ready,
now.
man. College football is back. I get to be as a fan. I'm actually very excited. I'm going to go to the Bronco game next week. I know it's a preseason game, but this is my first game as a fan since 2019. So I get to go. I know you went last year during when they allowed fans in the stands, but I'm very excited. I didn't go. I'm very excited. I get to go see a game, even though we probably won't get to see some players or something like that, but I'm just very excited.
I am too. I mean, obviously, we talked about it before we started the show. You watched the Rockies game last night, went to that. I watched the Broncos game, and I mean, it's two preseason games where they've beaten up teams that haven't started their starters, but I'm still excited, man. They're looking good.
Yeah, should we start planning for to go to California in February? Really? I mean, no, I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic. Like, yes, I'm very excited. These actually have been watchable preseason games, really, for as far as for like a Broncos fan, which you really haven't said that in the past 3-4 years, where you're just like, I gotta watch it because I'm a Bronco fan. But really, that Vikings game, I really haven't seen the Seahawks game yet, because I was at the Rockies game last night, which they won on a walk-off, by the way. It was amazing.
Very exciting.
It was a great crowd. I mean,
a game that actually meant something, as opposed to the Broncos Seahawks too.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And seeing them get their major league leading 12th walk-off of the season. I mean, really, this is a team really that does not quit. Really, it was looking bleak really for the first 8 innings. Really, they really couldn't get hit. They really couldn't get any offense. And then Garrett Hampson really stepped up, got a pitch hit, two-run home run. It's his second home run in 2 nights. And then you had a walk-off home run with Elias Diaz. You 3-run home run, man. And the crowd was like, the crowd really got like into it, like before that pitch too. Like the crowd was really cheering. Like it was a great at bat too, because it was a 10-pitch at bat too. Like Diaz really fought off a couple of pitches really to keep that at bat going.
They've won 5 in a row, so it's almost the start of Rocktober 2.0, right?
It is a start, but you got to put a little bit of an asterisk because all the games have been at home, and they are the best they are one of, if not the best home teams in the whole major leagues as well. I mean, really, I mean, it's just what a crazy season. I mean, just to kind of think about it, I mean, really, they could be like an historically good home team and then an historically bad road team, which is very, 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 very frustrating, especially being a fan.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, it's great for the home fans. You're seeing this team go out and perform. I mean, they swept the Padres last week. Very exciting stuff coming from the Rockies. They might be the ones that bump the Padres from the playoffs.
Yeah, I actually worked one of the games on Tuesday, and they kind of mentioned that when they mentioned that the Rockies were going to win the season series, and one of the commentators from KOA mentioned that they were like, "Oh man, if the Padres don't make the playoffs, I mean, the Rockies are probably going to be Exhibit A on why they weren't in the playoffs." I mean, they lost, 5 out of their first 6 against the Padres, and really after that, they hardly lost to them. I mean, really, they won. Let's see here, 6-3. Yeah, 6-3. Yeah, they won 11 out of the last, 3 again, or 11 out of the last 14 again against them. Yeah, I mean, really, I mean, if you told me in March, or if you told me in March or early April that the Rockies would win the season series against the Padres, I think I probably would have called you crazy, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, here they are. They put it together. And I mean, like I said, you got to beat the teams you're supposed to beat. And San Diego's not doing that, man. And they are struggling right now. And they do not look like a playoff team to me.
No, they do not look like a playoff team right now, and it is one of these things as well. I mean, they really have kind of got back a little bit. They won a couple of games against Philly. I mean, if we got to talk about a little bit of downfalls, we really got to talk about Philly. I mean, really, they've been really taking a slide. Really,
so
since
the Mets.
Yeah, so have the Mets, and the Braves have just come be like, okay, see ya. That type of thing. I mean, really, the Braves have really taken a stranglehold on that NL East. Really, I mean, they could be running away with this division. They could be winning the division by middle of September, which we didn't think about it probably a month ago. We thought that was going to be a very tight race between those 3 teams, and really, the Braves are kind of running away with it right now. Now, again, a couple of weeks here or there, that could change everything, though.
It sure could. And I mean, I'm kind of glad we looked like things might have been iffy when we made our preseason picks and the Braves came out and stunk. But now the Braves are looking like the division winner we predicted them to be. You have, I mean, obviously the Brewers and the Reds are kind of surprises, but you also have the Red Sox kind of coming back to earth as well.
Yes, the Red Sox have kind of come back to earth, and the Yankees are finally really starting to become the Yankees that we thought we were going to see all throughout this season. The pitching is a little bit suspect still, but really the hitting is starting to come along, and they're really starting to dominate teams, really.
They are. And I mean, like I said, with that lineup, I think we talked about it last week. That team is going to be really hard to beat. Now the Dodgers are beating up on teams as well. So, I mean, like I said, I think it's.
Yeah, the Dodgers are starting to creep up as well, but the Giants are still hanging on in there. I mean, really, they're hanging in. They're still leading the NL West. I mean, but September could be really huge. It could really change, the dynamics. Really, I mean, we could talk about maybe in NL West, and then probably we could see the Reds too. I mean, making that wild card playoff, which we didn't think probably like a month ago. We thought it was going to be 3 NL West teams making it to the playoffs, but not anymore.
No, definitely not. I mean, the Reds, like I said, seem to be playing a lot more better or baseball than the Padres do. And I mean, you look at it like they're finally getting healthy. I know Castellanos was out for a little bit. I know that, I mean, the Reds were battling some injury issues. Now they're getting everyone healthy and they seem to be riding the ship.
Yes, they do seem to be riding the ship, and they're playing really good baseball right now. I mean, it's just very, very surprising just seeing, some of these teams. And yeah, this is going to be a fun September. I'm really excited. Really, this is really going to be a fun September. And, the Rockies could play the role of spoiler, really, of being a spoiler team. Really. I mean, you kind of saw it with the Padres. They finished the season series already with the Padres, and they've won that. And you could see that as maybe Exhibit A. And then maybe, a couple of games here or there, they kind of beat the Dodgers or they beat the Giants or something like that. It really kind of turned the fate of the NL West.
I mean, it definitely did, but I mean, it's very exciting to see. I think the Rockies and some of these other teams, like the Pirates that could sneak out a game here or there, or even the Nationals, like if they sneak out a game here or there, it could make a huge impact going forward.
Yes, it could make a huge impact, but I mean, I got to talk about too about the Cubs. Really, like what a downfall from literally like 2 months ago. Really, I mean, it's crazy. I checked the standings on Friday. The standings literally about like a month ago. So I was checking. I think it was like June 28th, and they were literally one game back from the Brewers in the NL Central. They were one game back. They were in second place, one game back behind the Brewers, and I checked literally 2 months ago. Now they're 20 and a half back of the Brewers. I mean, what a turn of events in like 2 months. And that's what makes baseball such a crazy sport. I mean, if you get hot at the right time, or if you get cold, it really is kind of an example that you see that. And the Cubs are a good example of when you got cold at just the wrong time. And it's really a downfall. Like they really came from literally second place, fight for that Central 2 months ago, to really being out of the division. And really they're in rebuilding mode now.
Absolutely. It's so crazy to see. I mean, obviously they unloaded all their players, and I mean, they are a team that's going to be bad now for seemingly a long while.
This is definitely a rebuilding. This is definitely a rebuilding time now for the Cubs. We're going to see the Cubs, probably that early 2000s teams where they're probably going to be drafted, when Theo Epstein took over. I mean, there's probably going to be some painful years to come now for the Cubs.
Absolutely. They're going to be awful for a long time. And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the fact that the Baltimore Orioles have lost 17 games in a row.
They're back. I mean, we got to give Fangraphs credit for giving them a 0.0 chance of not making the playoffs. And I think we got to give Fangraphs at least a little bit of credit for that as well. But that was just a bad. I mean, really, that was a team that really was kind of fighting. They really were a team. They weren't good, but they still were fighting. But yeah, they really have taken a complete nosedive as well. Yeah, and really kind of becoming really the laughingstock again of the MLB.
Right. I mean, it's one of those times where you have to ask yourself, how long does a rebuild last? Because they've been bad for a while, it feels like now.
Yeah, they've been bad for at least 3-4 years now. And this is when you really start seeing the rewards and the dividends of the minor league system, and seeing the players kind of come up, and you're like, oh man, this is the team to watch for. Not right now with the Orioles. I mean, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, if it's another year or two, we could be seeing we could see another regime happen in Baltimore.
Certainly could. I mean, like I said, they have stunk for a while. So, I mean, 17 straight losses, that's bad. Even with the rebuild, that's bad.
Yeah, even with the rebuild, that's bad. Yeah, especially, this part of the rebuild. I mean, I know we had like the COVID thing as well, but yeah, this is usually the time, where you kind of see the players start getting up. You kind of see the farm system, you start getting happy. They do have a really good farm system going on right now. So we could see it maybe next year, or maybe the following year, that, finally that farm system was really rewarding their patience for all this losing.
Yeah. I mean, once again, it's great to say they have a good farm system, but you never know what guys are going to do once they get up here.
Yeah, we never know. We'll have to wait and see as far as with the Orioles and stuff.
I mean, how long did we hear once the Rockies made that Tulo trade that Jeff Hoffman was going to be the guy?
Many, many, many years. Many, many, many years. Yeah. Speaking of that, I mean, you got to see the Tulo. I mean, the Norland trade is actually looking still pretty good right now.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's so far, like I said, I think the big part of the trade was the $50 million.
I think so as well. Yeah.
I think that was the part that hung up a lot of people.
Right. I mean, it's just, it's just bad.
I mean, that's the part that jammed up a lot of people. To his credit, I mean, like you said, Austin Gomber's pitched well. He's been great at home. So, I mean, you got to give him some credit.
Yes, and he just had a he just gave his wife just gave birth to a baby boy. So that's really to celebrate. I mean, really, I mean, this has been really a good year for Austin Gomber.
It sure has. And I mean, you got to give a lot of new babies popping out from athletes here in Denver. As Von Miller just had his first baby.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and he seems to wow, really. I mean, if you want to talk about a turnaround, really, I mean, really, you got to kind of think about at least in the early part of this year, with the Von Miller scandal and stuff, and now he seems to be really embracing the being a father right now. So I mean, it really was a turnaround, I guess.
Certainly is, man. It's
It
very
certainly
exciting.
is. Speaking of which, with football, is there a more useless stat in the world than I know we talk about preseason as being like a farce, really a preseason winning streak, right? Okay,
Oh yeah,
so the Baltimore Ravens have
meaningless.
had just won their 19th straight preseason game. Like
Meaningless.
really, I mean, it's just is there a more useless stat? One of the most useless stats in all of sports, really. I mean, it's just I know I know it really is just more of our scrubs are better than your scrubs. Really, that's the case, especially with some of
Well,
these. And and they won their 19th straight preseason game, and they're trying to make it like a big deal. I'm like, this is a stupid stat, really.
it is. Because I remember the year that the Browns went 4-0 in the preseason and then went 0-16 in the regular season. Plus, I've watched both Broncos preseason games, and as much as I've loved them, but you could tell the Broncos wanted to win, and the other two teams did not care. Like
Yes,
they didn't
yes,
play anyone that
exactly.
mattered. They didn't care if they won. And I mean, for me, I mean, it's been fantastic because Andrea and I have done like this tradition where, like, if the Broncos score a touchdown, we take shots. And so, like, during the regular season, we haven't been able to do that, but during these preseason games, we've been able to finally get back to that tradition.
You're finally taking some shots or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, who do you have winning right now? I know you kind of watch both games. I haven't watched the Seattle game. Who do you have winning this quarterback battle right now? Because really, it really. I mean, stats wise, it looks neck and neck. Really.
I mean, my pick is that my prediction is that they're gonna go with Locke. Although last night Teddy looked a lot better with the starters. Uh, I mean, Teddy looked great with the starters. Locke looked great with the starters in each preseason game, but Teddy looked a lot better with that second string than Locke did.
Right,
So,
but I mean, Locke did have 5 drives, but he did lead them to 3 field goals. I mean, it's not
right.
like it was 5-3 now, it's or something like
No,
that. You do got to take that into account too. I mean,
but you also
at least he drove the ball down to at least got some points. I mean, we would like to see touchdowns more than field goals, but at least he's driving and getting some points.
both of those drives once again started on the plus side of the 50, or at least two of them did.
Oh, okay.
That said, I mean, once again, I think Locke has matured. His decision making has definitely been better in the preseason. And even last night, when he didn't necessarily have the offensive line in front of him to actually protect him and give him time, since he was out there with the second string guys, like he actually did look, I mean, as opposed to forcing it and making bad decisions, his decision making was a lot better. So I said, I wouldn't be surprised if Locke started week one. I think Teddy has been more consistent. That
Yeah,
said,
I
like I
would.
said, everyone's going to look, I don't care who looks better as long as they look good with the starters and the team wins. So
I know, yeah, and both guys actually really look good with the starters. I mean, this really kind of looks like really a deep team. Really, I mean,
it does.
this is probably one of the deeper teams since probably like 2012, that 2012 to 2015 range. Really, when that roster really was deep, and yeah, we could be talking about really about a really good defense. Kind of looking back at it. Really, I mean, this is probably going to be a really really good defense. Really, I mean, this is going to be a really good defense.
Absolutely. I mean, I think they're a little bit suspect at the linebacker position,
Which has
but
always been the problem. Really has been the linebacker position. It's been
once
that
again,
problem for like 6, 7, 8 years now.
I think that secondary is going to be very tough to throw on.
Yeah, exactly. And Patrick Surtain looks amazing right now. I mean, especially the 2 games. I mean, it's just he looks amazing right now. I mean, I know it's against bad QBs, but it's just this read and react on stuff, kind of following stuff. I mean, it just you can kind of see it and be like, that guy's really good. And I really like the running back from North Carolina, Javonte Williams. He's actually going to be a nice little bruiser back that really the Broncos really haven't had in a few years, really. I mean, we're a guy really kind of tough to tackle, and especially some of these games later on to the season and with the altitude and all that. So that could be a good thing.
I think so too. I think it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, it was funny because last night on the broadcast, which I didn't. This second crew was so much worse. I mean, Chad Brown was good, but the play-by-play guy was nowhere near as good as Steve Levy. And they missed clearly that Javonte Williams handed the ball to Dalton Reisner for one of the touchdowns. As Williams had gotten stopped on the goal line and gave it to Reisner, who kind of fell across and scored the touchdown. And they broadcast reported that 10 minutes later. And I saw it right away. But once again, that's besides the point. The defense looks phenomenal. Surtain looks phenomenal. And one thing that they said, though, in the broadcast last night was that Melvin Gordon was glad that Philip Lindsay was gone. And I'm sure it was because Lindsay's a much more popular player who it felt like was more productive than Gordon. And now Gordon's going to have the same problem with Javonte Williams, I think, being a better back than him.
Yeah, exactly. This is they're actually going to be pretty set really for the running back position. Really, and it's amazing. What I kind of think about too, they actually kind of kept as much as I probably criticized Pat Shurmur last year, at least they kind of kept him. And, I think that's the thing too. Like really, that's been the problem with the offense. Really, it's been this revolving door of offensive coordinators, and having to learn a new offense and schemes and all that. It really takes a toll on you. And that's the reason why the offense has been really stagnant. And the fact that they did keep Pat Shurmur, and they actually have another year under his system. Really, this really probably could help the offense maybe kind of flourish a little bit. That the fact that they had somebody to kind of stay and keep going.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's exciting to see. Maybe they do get the turnaround. Like I said, we'll see. I think they could. The schedule's certainly soft enough that they could definitely make some noise this year.
Yeah, especially early part of the season. Really, they have they have a lot of winnable games early part of the season, and yeah, it really hasn't been so much as the finish. It's been more of the start. Really, Broncos have started off slow, especially under Vic Fangio. So, if they could get off to a fast start and really kind of roll this momentum going, then maybe they could actually make a little noise as far as with the playoffs or something like that. I don't see them certainly making it to the Super Bowl or something like that, but certainly maybe making some noise and then maybe actually going to the playoffs this year.
Yeah, like I said, the schedule is soft enough that they could make it to the playoffs for sure.
Exactly. Yes, and really, and you got to compete really with probably the NFC East teams this year. I've been really impressed with the NFC East. Really, that's going to be a very competitive. I think that
they're going to suck. They're gonna suck again. It's the NFC East. They're gonna suck again.
Actually, the AFC East. I'm sorry, the AFC East. My bad. The NFC East is gonna stink, and that's really gonna I think that's gonna benefit the Broncos really a lot because they do play the NFC East. But as far as with the AFC East, that's really gonna be a really competitive. That's really going to be a really competitive division, which is funny. You wouldn't think about that 5 years ago. Really, it was just the Patriots and then everybody else. Now you have the Bills, you have the Dolphins, and then the Patriots are going to have to fight for it now instead of we're the Patriots, we'll just go in and we'll just beat you. We'll take this. We'll just take this AFC East and run.
I think Buffalo's going to steamroll that division.
Buffalo is going to be an amazing team this year. I would not be shocked if we see them as a 14-3 or a 15-2 team since we have the 17-week schedule, or that 13-4 team. It's just. They're gonna really be one of the top classes of the AFC this year. Yeah, along with the Chiefs.
I think that the Jets are still gonna suck. I think Tua's overrated. I don't think the Dolphins are gonna do much. But like I said, we're gonna preview that in a full NFL preview coming up.
I know. But I'll just give you guys a little bit of hints,
Yeah. Well, we did want to talk some NFL today, though. We want to talk about the NFL. We're breaking it down. We got the worst quarterbacks for each franchise today. I don't want to tip away too much of our hand and give you the NFL preview ahead of time. So we wanted to do a thing, though, this week, since there wasn't as much to talk about, talking about the worst quarterback to ever be the starter for each franchise. Now, I don't know what you did, Bushy. I went with people who were the full starter for at least the full season, or at least started a bulk of the season.
I basically did most of the season as well. I did bulk of the season, because it's just you can't really have a bunch of one-offs here or there, or something like that. That's the reason why we'll go to the Broncos. I don't want to spoil anything with the Broncos, so we won't do anything as far as with that, as far as the worst starting quarterback. But that really did help as far as with my collection, as far as with players.
Yeah, I definitely think so too.
Yeah, and it's just a bulk of the season. I think maybe a quarter or a half of the season as well. And they actually did have some starts here or there too with their franchise as well after that.
Yeah. I mean, let's get it started. You said you want to start in the NFC. Let's start with the NFC West.
Yeah, let's
Let's start with
start
the Arizona Cardinals.
the NFC West. For the Cardinals, I mean, you got to go with. I think it really was unfortunate because it just with all the injuries and all that. I mean, you got to put Ryan Lindley in there as far as with me, and and I do count it as like a play, and he did start like a playoff game, probably the worst playoff game ever in the history of mankind. That wild card game between them and the Carolina Panthers, that was one of the worst playoff games ever. Like that was a very, very bad playoff game. And yeah, you got to put Lindley in there, and it's just like he really couldn't do anything those games.
I mean, I think that Lindley obviously that belongs in there, but my pick for the Cardinals, I mean, Lindley was a 6th-round pick, so the expectation for Lindley was a little bit low. I went for Matt Leinart, obviously a 1st-round draft pick, a guy coming in with a lot of hype. And I mean, he came in, never was able to win the job from Kurt Warner, and finished his career with more interceptions than touchdowns, and really kind of stunk up the joint when he was there for the Cardinals.
Yeah, he really was. Yeah, he was bad as well. And yeah, like everybody was. I'm actually kind of shocked that I thought he would be. I thought he would really be a. I thought he really would be a good quarterback. Really, I mean, coming out of USC, I think it was just really I guess I guess I'm not going to tip my hand so much. I mean, we'll talk about him. We'll talk about him going forward as far as with the 49ers as well. But I mean, really, I mean, I guess I'm tipping my hand here really with the 49ers, the Ken Dorsey effect, really, where it's just he had so much talent around him that it made him better than what he really was.
Absolutely. So do you want to just, since you did tip your hand, move?
Yeah,
Move
49ers, Ken Dorsey. Really, I mean, it really is a shock because I think he's one of the winningest quarterbacks, I think, for the University of Miami. And you just thought, really, I mean, he's a quarterback, and man, it's just he really moved that offense really well for the University of Miami. And it's just when we find out later, it was the effect really. I mean, think about it, man. He had Jeremy Shockey, he had Andre Johnson to throw to. He had Clinton Portis and Frank Gore. With like the running back position. I mean, it's just, and he had a fantastic offensive line, and he had a fantastic defense as well at the University of Miami, really. And yeah, I mean, it's just he was. He was a great quarterback in college, just not very good as far as with the quarterbacks for the 49ers.
Yeah, I mean, Ken Dorsey certainly belongs in this conversation. I mean, they had some stinky guys there in the middle of the 2000s too, with Brock Berlin and some of these other guys. I went with Steve DeBerg because he was their starter for the 1978 season when they were literally awful.
DeBerg really is a good candidate as well. He is a very good candidate. I'm not shocked by that. I mean, really, it's a team that really had two really good quarterbacks for 2 decades, really, with Montana and Young. That really kind of solidified the 2 decades, really. And then really it's been kind of really a vast wasteland, really, since the 2000s. I mean, we
had Kaepernick, who was able to bridge the gap for a little bit. I think
bridge the gap a little bit,
but
but then and then you have like the Nick Mullins experiment, with the Jimmy G experiment. That seems like it's going to come to an end now, and now they're going to have really the Trey Lance era as well. Really, it for the past 20 years, really, except for really Kaepernick and then a few years of Alex Smith, who really people forget he really stunk until Jim Harbaugh came into the 49ers as well. I mean, really, I mean, if it wasn't for Alex Smith really kind of having those 2 good years, really for the 49ers, really, I mean, I probably would have put Alex Smith on here, but he had those 2 good years under Harbaugh.
He certainly did. And I mean, DeBerg in his seasons starting for the 49ers, like he went 2-14, and then he the team went 2-14, and then they were really bad the year after that too, with before they switched to Joe Montana.
Yes, before they switched. Yeah, and it's just Steve DeBerg was always one of those people that they replaced him for the other good quarterbacks. Like he was there before Montana. He was in Denver before John Elway, and then John Elway took over. Yeah, it really was like a hodgepodge for him. And then he went to the, really a vast wasteland, really, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, I mean, he could definitely be on this list multiple times for me. He's not, but I mean,
yeah, but it's good. I'm glad you did, DeBerg.
Yeah. Ken Dorsey, that was a good pick too. I definitely could see that one too.
Yes.
Because once again, he had this expectation of him coming out of like college too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he had that, but he really was like a lower round pick. I mean, it wasn't like
Right.
this guy was like a top 10 pick compared to Matt Leinart or something like that
Right.
as well.
Absolutely. All right. Let's talk about the Rams next. Where do you got with the Rams?
The Rams. Okay, so I got their last season before they moved from St. Louis to back to LA, really, from that thing. And I got Nick Foles. I mean, people forget like that was a really big trade that the Rams did to get Nick Foles, really from like the Eagles and stuff. And really, I mean, he really and this was before the, with the acronym that they have a Big Dick Nick, or something like that. I mean, this is before that and all that. And really, I mean, yeah, he was bad. I mean, he was 5-11. So he finished the entire season with St. Louis as well. And yeah, he was bad. I mean, he threw for only 2,000 yards, had 7 touchdowns and 10 picks. I mean, and this is a guy that played the entire season too. And especially in 2015, which really, we kind of saw really a more wide open offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nick Foles, I mean, obviously he's really struggled in his time in St. Louis, but my pick, I went with another recent guy, and he was the Rams' first pick overall in the draft in 2010, and that is Sam Bradford. Sam Bradford came in, he stunk up the joints. I mean, he was really not a good quarterback. He threw way too many picks. And I mean, he really also was just, I mean, the offensive line wasn't helping him much. He was getting sacked a lot. But at the end of the day, I mean, he struggled. He was injury prone. And I mean, they really jacked up bad with Sam Bradford. And this,
yeah, that's a good pick. I thought about Sam Bradford as well, but I thought about Nick Foles, and I was just like, oh yeah, that's right. Like he was really bad. I mean, really, I mean, but yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, Sam Bradford, yeah, with like
right.
the pick and the expectations and like the money. I mean, really, I mean, he should be arrested for stealing money, basically. Like, how in the world does he, have like all this money, really? I mean, and
Right.
it's just, and the fact too, he was injury prone in college too. I mean, he did have an injury too at Oklahoma. So, I mean, it wasn't like the injuries came after his college career. It did happen in his college career too.
I mean, yeah, he certainly did. And I mean, I think he was kind of carried by Adrian Peterson throughout most of his college career, made him look a lot better than he was. And he came in and, I mean, didn't do anything helpful. But once again,
Yeah.
Nick Foles kind of had those expectations after the Super Bowl and didn't do anything either. So.
Right, yeah, and he actually had a couple of decent years in Philly, like the first rendition of Philly, but yeah, I mean, it was just a really bad time for him, really. I mean, it's just, and yeah, he really did get the acronym until he went back to Philly, really, and he actually defeated Tom Brady in the playoffs. So, I mean, if you told me in 2015, like, oh yeah, he's going to beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles, you would have been like, what?
Also, it's worth noting Sam Bradford was sacked 196 times in his career, and he only threw 103 touchdown passes. So he wasn't too good at avoiding the pressure.
Oh yeah, he was bad. I mean, it really was a bad, for him.
Absolutely. So I mean, he's bad. Who did you have for the Seahawks?
For the Seahawks, Seahawks were a little bit tricky. I mean, it's just they what?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was one of these teams. I'm like, oh, really? Like they really. I mean, Russell Wilson. I mean, it's like Jim Zorn and like Russell Wilson, but it's just like in between there. They did have a couple of years with Warren Moon.
Matt Hasselbeck.
Yeah, Matt Hasselbeck. He was decent as well. John Kidna was, I guess, semi okay. I mean, I'm not saying he mediocre or something like that, but yeah. But I'm gonna have to go with. I'm gonna have to go with probably with the. Man, I mean, it's just it's tough for me. Let's put it that way. I mean, it's just, and yeah, but I'm probably gonna have to go with probably Rick Meyer. Really, I mean, as far as with with that choice, I mean, it's just he was like you're saying. I mean, he was built to be the guy. Yeah. I mean, and he had yeah, he had stuff. I mean, he had potential, and I mean, he was with the 1-2 class with, it was either him or Drew Bledsoe. Are you going to take him? Or are you going to take Bledsoe?
clearly Bledsoe was the right pick, and I obviously went with Rick Meyer as well. I think he was the worst. I mean, here he is, second pick overall. He comes in, starts his first. I mean, the Seahawks from 93 to 96 were awful. And I mean, then they bring in Kitna and turn it around like a little bit, but like they were like the doormat of the AFC West, because that's where they were back in those days.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, the Broncos were guaranteed 2 victories a season over the Seahawks. In fact, Chad Brown, who was doing the broadcast last night for the Broncos, basically said that the Broncos went 9-1 against him in his career in Seattle. So, like, basically, I mean, the Seahawks were bad in those days, and Meyer was a big part of it. I think he
yeah.
had one season where he threw more interception or more TDs than interceptions.
Yes, it was. It was the 94 season. He threw 11 touchdowns to 7 interceptions, but he started for 13 games. So that gives our thing. But really, I mean, it's just like really the touchdowns were 12, 11, 13, and 5 with his last season with in 96. He went 5 and 12 as far as with the touchdown interception ratio. And yeah, I mean, this guy was really built, and Bill Walsh really put him too. Like he quoted that he was going to be the next Joe Montana. Really, I mean, it was just, I mean, that's really putting a lot of pressure on the guy as well. So, and he actually had better stats really than Bledsoe in the 93 year. And you thought, oh, this guy, you know, even though, yeah, you don't see, 12 touchdowns to 17 interceptions, but he did throw for almost 3,000 yards. But I think it was one of those cases where he started out really strong, but then teams really started to figure him out good. And yeah, it just went all downhill from here.
Yeah, he was bad. And I mean, he's definitely the answer, I think, for me. I mean, obviously they had that one season in 2011 where they started Tavares Jackson, but I mean, really you can't say, I mean, one season versus 4 seasons of suckiness, and Rick Meyer gave him 4 years of suckiness.
Yes, it was very, very bad. And it just really is. Yeah, he was just a bad quarterback, really. I mean, it's just a bad franchise quarterback.
All right, where do you want to go next?
Let's go to the. I'm looking up stuff here. Let's go to the NFC North.
All right, let's do it. Where do you want to start? Let's start with the Bears.
Let's start with the Bears. Okay. So with the Bears,
they've had a lot of bad quarterbacks, haven't they?
They really have had about. What about you? What is your pick?
I picked Bobby Douglas. He was the one who started their worst season in 1969. Another one of these guys who threw more picks than touchdowns. And I mean, once again, there were a lot of bad choices here, but I mean, at least Rex Grossman somehow led them to a Super Bowl. I thought that, I mean, Orton was bad, but he wasn't this bad. And I mean, they were like, I mean, Bobby Douglas was a guy who they started for multiple seasons there, actually from 69 to 75. And I mean, he was bad for a lot of that time.
Yeah, he was bad, but he did hold the record really until Michael Vick broke it, and then now it's been broken many times before. He held that record for a very, very long time. That was most rushing yards by a quarterback in a season. I mean, yeah, he actually had that distinct record. But I decided to go with a guy by the name of Bob Avellini. So he really kind of started in like 76 to 78. With the Bears, it really, I mean, he had a good season in 77. He went 9-5. I mean, it's just, but really, I mean, as far as with this, I know it's the 70s or something like that. He did finish with 33 touchdowns and 69 interceptions. I mean, that's almost a 2-to-1 ratio. Really, I mean, it is just bad. I mean, I know it's like this dead ball era, like the Bears really weren't that good. It was really Walter Payton and then everybody else. So, and he was the quarterback behind it as well. So, especially during those prime years with Walter Payton.
And I mean, Bob Avellini's nickname is Slow-Mo, and I don't think it's for good reason.
No, it is not. It is not a very good reason. I don't think that's a good thing.
I mean, Bobby Douglas, once again, you talked about his rushing ability, but man, did he struggle as a passer. And I mean, he threw a lot of picks. And I mean, both guys are bad. And I mean, they were bad for most of those 70s. So, I mean, they are a team that struggle.
Yeah.
Mightily. I mean, they even had some other bad options in here. Eric Kramer in like the late 90s. I mean, Cade McNown. Like, they've had a lot of bad quarterbacks.
Oh yeah, it really is one of those. Yeah, I do have to give a little bit of grain of salt because yeah, it was the 70s where everybody basically ran 3 times and then punt. You really passed at a necessity.
Yeah, but once again, you did have some good quarterbacks in that era. Bradshaw, Roger Staubach. I mean, you had some guys that, survived and thrived in that era, and Avellini was not one of them.
No, he was not. It definitely was definitely one of those things. I'm gonna go now to the Minnesota Vikings, and I'm gonna go. It's really weird. Like the Vikings were kind of like the Vikings are kind of like the Seahawks, really. I mean, they got
Right.
a lot of like bridge quarterbacks, really. I mean, there's some QBs, or something like that. But I decided to go somebody recent. I decided to go with Christian Ponder.
Nice.
Yes, Christian Ponder. I forgot the Vikings went 10-6 really in 2012. Like that's I can tell you, like that's how bad like Ponder was, and really, I mean, and he started the bulk of the season in 2011 and 2013. But yeah, I mean, that 2012 really is kind of anomaly because really, I mean, it was all downhill for him. I mean, really, I mean, it's just he really wasn't good. He was 2-8 in 11. He was 2-6-1 in 2013. Throwing a ton of interceptions, throwing 22 interceptions compared to 20, and
Mhm.
really not moving the ball down the field.
Yeah, and I mean, he was 14 and 21 as a starter there. And I mean, obviously, say some people think that QB wins are not a real stat. I think that they should be. I mean, I think that's a big thing because if QB wins aren't a real stat, then why is Tom Brady the GOAT? But at the end of the day, I mean, you look at it, and I mean, Ponder was not good. He had one good season, but once again, I think Adrian Peterson, talk about it again. I think he made Ponder look a lot better than he was. And
Yes,
Ponder is one of those guys who was awful.
he helped Sam Bradford and Christian Ponder.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally forgot the Vikings went 10-6 really in 2012.
Right.
Like that's just one of those seasons where you just kind of look back and you go, "What? Really? They're 10-6." Yeah, it's definitely one of those crazy things. Yeah, but they're one.
I would agree. Christian Ponder was definitely on my list. I mean, I think I also looked at Wade Wilson, who was their quarterback throughout most of the 80s, and they were pretty bad in the 80s. He went 27 and 21 as a starter, but he also threw 66 touchdowns compared to 75 picks. So once again, a guy who really wasn't helping the team. Plus, I just wanted to say Wade Wilson since it was also the name of the character of Deadpool. So
Yeah, you could always go with Wade Wilson. Yeah, he definitely was one of those quarterbacks in the 80s, and it's one of these people too. He always started like the majority, especially during the 87 to like 89 range. I mean, where he actually did play in games, but then he did start, so he did start the majority of the time. I mean,
right.
and he just wasn't. Yeah, he just wasn't really a very. Yeah, he really is the definition of a journeyman quarterback, really.
I mean, that said, I'm going to agree with you. I think Christian Ponder was definitely worse. Another honorable mention, Dante Culpepper. Like he wasted a time when they had a lot of talent.
Yeah, they wasted a time where he did have a ton of talent, and yeah, it's one of those things as well, and it just he had a couple of good years, and then really, I mean, I think like after the Madden curse, it really went downhill for him.
Absolutely, it certainly did.
Yeah, and the Vikings were a strange team too. Yeah, I thought about Culpepper as well, but I decided to go with Christian Ponder.
Christian Ponder's a great pick. I agree with
Yes,
you. It's probably Christian Ponder.
it is.
Let's talk about the ditch. Let's talk about Green Bay. Let's do Green Bay first. Let's get
Green Bay was like very, very
it was
tricky.
very hard. Yeah.
Yeah, like Green Bay was actually like one of the very hard people,
Because they've had such great quarterbacks. So it's for a good reason.
And really, I mean, they've had really three great quarterbacks, all of us, with like Bart Starr, and then really for like the 90s and 2000s, they really they bridged from this Brett Favre era to this Aaron Rodgers era as well. But for me, I mean, I'm gonna have to go with a guy named Randy White for them. I mean, really, I mean, it was just the 80s were really a terrible time for the Packers. Really, I mean, they were a team that stunk. Really, I mean, it's just and the fact that seriously in like 86, like Randy White went 4-12. I mean, he threw for over 3,000 yards, but he's threw 23 picks compared to like 17 touchdowns. I mean, really, he's threw more picks than touchdowns. And
yeah, he was my pick as well. And I mean, once again, it's a credit to the Packers that they've had such great quarterbacks. But once again, Randy White in his career, 31 TDs to 57 interceptions. I mean, he threw for a lot of yards, but it's probably because he had to. And it's because the team was behind in a lot of those games because like the one kind of bleak years in Green Bay, it was Randy Wright starting.
Yeah, it was Randy White. He was a yeah, it was just a bad quarterback in general. Really, I mean, it's just I kind of want the Packers really to kind of have like this era now where they really kind of have like these '80s run, where they just really kind of stink it up, really, and be really kind of like a doormat. Really, I mean, I think the Packer fans are getting a little bit too, and I think it could happen really with the when Rodgers leaves.
Well, you never know. I mean, it's gonna be an interesting thing to see what happens when he does leave. But I mean, they're one of those teams like I don't mind them being good. I mean, they have their struggles here and there, but it's not like they've been good where like they've been like New England good where they've been winning championships every year. They've just been good.
Yeah, they just been good, but they always find a way to kind of lose, except for like one of these like anomaly years, like in 2011 as well. So
Yeah. So I mean, let's talk about it too. I mean, obviously the Green Bay Packers were a tough team to do because they've had so many good quarterbacks. The next team was hard to do because they've had so many bad quarterbacks. Let's talk about the Detroit Lions.
all right, for the Detroit Lions, I was just like naming like, oh my God, just naming all the
All
bad
of them,
quarterbacks,
right?
all of them that I basically went with every QB not named Bobby Lane or Matthew Stafford. Really, I mean really, I mean it's just I kind of copped out here, but it's just
Yeah.
like every QB not named Bobby Lane or Matt Stafford. Really, I mean it's just Matt Stafford. Really, I mean it's probably the best quarterback in the Detroit Lions history, the Detroit Lions football history. Really, and that's just a sad thing to kind of say.
So I feel bad that you copped out because I copped out too, and I just put all of them because they were all so bad. But I mean, it's like Dan Orlovsky was bad, but he didn't get the full season. Kidna was bad when he was there. I mean, obviously, I had Joey Harrington who was awful. Charlie Batch before that. I mean,
Charlie Batch, yeah. I mean, Eric
Scott
Kramer let him
Mitchell,
do a good year, but yeah, it's like Andre Ware too. Like
Rodney
it's just
Peete,
Rodney Pete. It's just a bad, like just a long
Scott
bad
Mitchell.
list.
Like, yeah, it is
Yeah,
horrible.
Scott Mitchell is actually kind of one of the good ones, really. I mean,
Yeah,
that's how
which is
sad of a
sad.
franchise.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just how sad of a franchise is.
Yeah. Charlie Batch. I mean, like they just had these like runs of guys that were just I mean, the team's been awful for so long. Once again, I copped out and said all of them too. But I mean, if you desperately had to pick somebody, I mean, I don't know. I go Joey Harrington just because he started 4 seasons straight and was so bad on all of them?
Yeah, we got to go with
But
Mitt
all of them,
Plum,
really.
Bill Munson,
Yeah.
Craig Landry, like I mean, it's just Rusty Hilger.
All of these guys are
All
so
these
bad.
guys, Chuck Long, Eric Hipple, like I mean, it's just like
It's bad.
yeah, like oh yeah, I forgot like John Hill, Drew Stanton,
Yeah. Even in
quarterback a
recent
couple of
years, they've had these guys that were terrible.
yeah, David Blah, Jeff Driscoll. I
Right.
mean, it's just like a long list of I'm just naming just bad QB after bad QB.
It's amazing. It's
It is
amazing.
amazing. Yeah, yeah. It's just one of those. It's just one of these teams where you just have to cop out. Where you're just like
Right.
every quarterback really is stinked except for probably two people. Really,
Right.
I mean, it's just Bobby Lane. Yeah, the Bobby Lane was a really good
Dude,
quarterback, and then
you might have
and
to give
then
Eric Kramer a little bit of love too, just because he won their last postseason game in 1991.
yes, you got to give Eric Kramer at least a little bit. But really, I mean, it's just really really bad as far
It's
as with
bad.
yeah. I mean, it's just like a vast wasteland. I mean, we could be talking about just another bad quarterback too, and Jared Goff going in, and I think not to step
Never
on
know.
but I think the Lions not to step on the NFL preview, but I think the Lions are probably going to be my worst team of the NFL this year.
Oh, I don't know about that, but they're not going to be good. But
No, we could be, I'm not saying probably they'll go 0-17, but I think they're going to be, it's probably going to be a 2-15 type of year for them
I think it
where
was a very
they win by
lateral-
accident.
I
They
think
win
it's
by
a,
accident.
I think it's a very lateral move for them going from the Stafford to Goff. Stafford's numbers look better because he's been throwing to Calvin Johnson for half of his career.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, he did throw to a Hall of Famer.
So I mean, let's see there. I mean, obviously that's interesting. We'll go to the NFC South next. I mean, let's start with the Atlanta Falcons.
The Atlanta Falcons, I mean, This one was a tough one for me.
Right. They've been
Yeah,
okay. They've
a
had some
little bit.
guys.
Yeah, they've had decent quarterbacks. I mean, Matt Ryan, he did win an MVP, so we can't put him on.
Led them to a Super Bowl.
Let him do a Super Bowl. I
Same
mean,
with
Chris Chandler
Chris
did the
Chandler.
same thing.
Yeah.
Chris Chandler did the same thing. I'm gonna have to go with Randy Johnson, and not the pitcher, but the actual quarterback.
He might have been able. The pitcher might have been able to do better.
Yeah, not the pitcher, but the actual quarterback. Yeah, I mean, really, in like really the starts that he did. I mean, it's just, especially in 66 and 67. I mean, he went 3-8 and 66, and then 67 he went 1-10-1. Really, I mean, with 21 interceptions in both games. I mean, I know it's an expansion team, but sometimes you got to really put an expansion quarterback on here.
Right.
Sometimes, yeah.
He
Really, I mean, he threw a
sure.
ton more picks than touchdowns. Really, I mean, it was kind of a case too where, yeah, you would think that, oh yeah, where he had with like 10 touchdowns to 12 interceptions or something like that. But no, he is the interception to touchdown ratio is bad.
I gave him a pass here, and I gave him a pass because he was the expansion quarterback. I went with Chris Miller instead. Chris Miller was 23 and 43. He stunk with them in the late 80s. And I mean, he threw slightly more touchdowns than interceptions. He threw 87 touchdowns to 72 picks. But again, a guy who, I mean, presided over a really bad era of Atlanta Falcons football.
Yes, it was a bad era as well. But I think he was the quarterback that led him to a playoff victory.
He did go to one playoff victory.
Yeah, he did lead him to one playoff victory. But that's about it. Yeah. Then again, we don't give Eric Kramer a pass for that as well. So
we gave Eric Kramer a pass because he was being compared to everyone else. But
as far as with great Detroit Lions quarterbacks.
I mean, I wanted to go Michael Vick just because I despise dogfighting, but I didn't do that. I mean,
can't. Yeah, I would fight. I mean,
Ryan, Vick, and Chandler were all okay as far as quarterbacks go. Jeff George was okay. So I went with Miller, but once again, Randy Johnson was also a great pick. I think he's probably the answer.
Yeah, he's the answer in my book.
Yep. All right, where do you go next?
For me, I'm gonna go with the Carolina Panthers, and I'm gonna go with Chris Winkie. Yes, I know. I mean, it's just he was just bad. I mean, really, I mean, he was part of that. He's part of that team that led to a 1-15 season as well. With them as well. I mean, I guess you can make a case too for Jimmy Clausen as well, but for me, I got to go with Chris Winkie.
I would agree. Chris Winkie, very bad. I mean, obviously you talked about Jimmy Clausen being bad too, but I mean, at the end of the day, Chris Winkie was another one of these guys who you had the expectations. He came from college, but once again, it was one of those situations where like all the people around him in college made him look great, and he wasn't, and he came in and just did terribly.
Yeah, he just did terribly, and really, I mean, he got replaced by Jake Delhomme, and somehow that was an upgrade. That's to tell you're a bad quarterback.
Hey, Jake Delhomme went to the Super Bowl. You can't say he was bad, but at the end of the day, Chris Winkie was awful.
Oh, you want to know something too? I'm looking up Randy. Going back to Atlanta, I'm looking up Randy Johnson's Pro Football Reference.
Yeah.
Guess who drafted him in the fourth round, 27th overall in the AFL draft?
Broncos.
Yep. we lucked out on that one. Atlanta chose him first round in the NFL. We chose him in the fourth. The Broncos chose him in the fourth round. Yeah. Don't worry. We'll get to the Broncos on this one.
Chris Winkie, another guy who had more interceptions than touchdowns too. So you got to look at that.
Yes. More interceptions than touchdowns. And he was just bad. I mean, it was just a bad quarterback.
He certainly was. And let's transition now to the New Orleans Saints.
For me, I mean, this was.
I'm going controversial on this one. I'm going to go with Archie Manning.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, he started all of their games in the 70s, and he basically lost all of them.
Okay. Yeah. I can kind of see that.
He's basically, I mean, once again, he's more famous for having better kids that are better quarterbacks than him.
You know what? I'm going to have to agree with you on this. Really, I mean, it's just It really is like I am going to have to agree with you. Yeah. And they were like 2-11. And really, I mean, he was part of those Aints teams that went 1-15. I mean, it's
Right.
just really like up and down. And really, they couldn't get really have like he didn't have a winning season at all. And I got to
Right.
tend to agree with you on this one. Yeah. You know
He
what?
had
I
a
like it.
he
I
had
like it. Give me,
129 career starts and he went 35 and 91. And we all talk about him fondly, but it's because of his kids. He kind of sucked as a quarterback in the NFL.
yeah. And he threw for this New Orleans tenure 115 touchdowns to 156 interceptions. I know it was the 70s and the 80s,
Right.
different rules, but yeah, I mean, it was just
And I mean, they
that was
didn't
a bad
block for
team.
him, but still.
Yeah, I mean, he was part of the quarterbacks. I mean, I think it was just he was New Orleans' first like star, so I think that's why people kind of remember him fondly. And I do agree with you too about like the whole kids, because to be honest, I didn't really know about Archie Manning until Peyton really started to come, on and
Right.
become the Peyton Manning that we know.
Exactly. I mean, it says, I just looked it up. He was sacked 337 times during his Saints career, and then opposing defenses started to take it easy on him because they felt bad for him. So I mean, it's
Yeah,
sad that I mean, he obviously didn't have the talent around him, but that said, I mean, he was not good.
yeah, he was not very good. He, yeah, it is a controversial take, but you know what? I got to agree with you on this one.
Yep.
I got to
Yep.
agree with you. You got to do it.
Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay. Okay, I'm going to go controversial here. Okay, I say Tom Brady is their worst. No, I'm just kidding.
No way.
No, for me, I'm going to have to go with Steve Spurrier.
Mhm.
Yeah, he was the Heisman Trophy, and before he was a great college coach and then a really terrible NFL coach. Yeah, he was a really bad NFL quarterback, really. I mean, and he started for those. I know it's an expansion year with the 76 Dolphins, but really, I mean, he went 0-12. He
Yeah.
threw 12 interceptions to 7 touchdowns, and really, I mean, and he started the bulk of the year. Really, I mean, that's just the case. He started the
Yeah.
bulk of the year.
That's who I had as well. And I mean, it's obvious. I mean, once again, expansion team, not a lot of talent around him. But we've even talked about some of these franchises that have that expansion quarterbacks, like the Carolina Panthers. We didn't put their first starting quarterback on this list. There's been some teams that have been able to navigate it with their expansion quarterback and do okay. But once again, that first guy's in a tough spot, and the Buccaneers were a perfect example of that. I mean, I'm sorry, but if you don't win in a season and you start the whole season, it's
And he started the
bad.
majority of the season too.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Then that's the case. Yeah, you gotta be that way.
right. You do. And I mean, they've had decent enough quarterbacks. I think maybe had I not put Steve DeBerg as my 49ers quarterback, I might have put him as my Buccaneers quarterback because they were bad when he was here in the 80s. But I mean, at the end of the day, it was one of those ones where Steve Spurrier unfortunately led them to a winless season. And because of that, he takes the cake.
Yep, he takes the cake for me as well. uh,
I mean, because even their bad quarterbacks have led them to the postseason. I mean, Vinny Testaverde wasn't good there either, but
yeah, Vinny wasn't good either. Yeah,
he was
I
almost
could we
picked.
could have put Vinny on that list. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean
I mean, you look at
Vinny could
Vinny's
have been easy.
numbers.
Yeah, if we wanted to
77
throw.
touchdowns to 112 picks while he was there. Maybe it is Vinny.
I mean, I'm still
Still
gonna go with.
Spurrier.
Yeah, I'm still gonna go with Spurrier, but yeah, I mean, Vinny makes it probably a close second.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it really was bad
Mhm.
for them.
It certainly was. Let's move on to the NFC East, which I mean, I think overall this was a tough division to do.
This was a tough division to do for me. Yeah, because we got some star power here. I mean, there were a couple of teams that worked, and then there were a couple of teams that didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start it off with the Cowboys. Who did you have for the Cowboys?
The Dallas Cowboys. Okay, for me, this was very a tough one for me as well. But I'm gonna have to go with. I think like people forget, like, oh yeah, that's right. He started for the Cowboys, and that was Chad Hutchinson. And
Oh
he
yeah.
started for the Cowboys. He started 9 games for them in 2002. I mean, he threw for 1,500 yards, and then that but really 7 touchdowns to 8 picks. And really, I mean, those Cowboys teams in the early 2000s before Bill Parcells came in really stunk. I mean, they were not a very good, that was not a very good franchise.
No, they definitely stunk back then. I went with a guy named Steve Pallure, and I mean, he sucked really badly for them. He was one of their top draft picks out of the USFL, and he kind of came in. He started 14 of their 16 games, but the team went 3-13. They really struggled in those 280 seasons when he did. But I mean, so he was kind of like their guy. I mean, Hutchinson was bad. He's probably the worst by talent quarterback that they had. But at the end of the day, Pallure got 2 full seasons as a starter, and he sucked.
Yeah, he got. I have to tend to agree with you on that. Yeah, and he started. He started, yeah, especially the 88 season, 87, 88, yeah, when the Cowboys really were on their downslope as well. And it just, it really, those bad times really for the Cowboy teams. I mean, really, it really is like the late, the late 80s or the early 2000s Cowboys teams. That was really like a vast wasteland as far as with their dominance.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, once again, they're a team with a really good history. I mean, they have had such good talent at the quarterback position that they were one of the teams that was tough to put on this list.
Yeah, this was very tough. I mean, I wanted to make a joke. Maybe I'm like Troy Aikman, post Super Bowl wins, or like, but really you can't really put that as well. Yeah, you can't do that.
I mean, they've had such strong starting quarterbacks. Like I said, it's tough to find someone. Even Quincy Carter had a winning record as a quarterback there.
Yeah, Quincy Carter was actually a decent quarterback there too, as well. And it's just like, I mean, it's just very, very hard to kind of find some of these players. But yeah, I feel like the rest of the Cowboys, I think, were the toughest team really to find a really bad quarterback.
I had forgotten all about Chad Hutchinson.
Yeah, I forgot too until I did some research too, and I'm like, oh my god, like I forgot he was supposed to be like the guy,
Yeah, it's crazy. He went. Yes. That's ridiculous. Wow, I forgot all about him, and he played baseball too, and he wasn't good at either.
Nope.
All right, let's talk about the team that was the hardest for me, and that was the New York Giants.
New York Giants. I'm gonna have to go with Joe Pisarcik.
Me too.
Yes, I'm glad you agreed with me as well. I mean, 77-78. I mean, he went 4-7 and 4-8 in those 2 years. 4 touchdowns and 14 picks in 77. I mean, 12 touchdowns and 23 picks. And not to mention too, he fumbled in what probably is one of the most famous gaffes really in the history of the NFL, and that's the Meadowland miracle at the Meadowlands. Really, I mean, where he fumbled. He didn't want to get hurt, so he fumbled. He fumbled the ball that allowed Herman Edwards to pick it up and run for a touchdown. Really, when all he should have done really was just kind of sit back and kind of take a hit once in a while.
Yeah, I mean, aside from he was also a coward on top of being a bad quarterback, so you can't have that.
Yes. I know, and it's just you got to give him credit for that as well. And it's just like, oh my God, like that, he's part of the biggest gaps, really.
Right. I mean, he was like his highest moment was backing up Phil Simms once they got Phil Simms in there.
Yes, that is his case. Yes.
He was bad. Let's talk about the Eagles, another team who's been decent as far as starting quarterbacks go.
They are decent. They've had some decent quarterbacks. I mean, but they could be looking at they could be looking at some something as well. They could be looking at a vast wasteland really in the next coming years.
I mean, it depends on how good Jalen Hurts is.
Yeah, it depends on how good Jalen Hurts is. But for me, I'm going to have to go with Bobby Hoying. He played. I'm checking out literally his stats right now. And really, he played 2 seasons in 97 and 98, and nobody wanted him afterwards. He didn't really produce a stat afterwards.
Oh yeah, I'd forgotten all about him. I mean, I feel like I guess he was just backing.
Oh, he had a couple of years in Oakland, but I mean, it was just, I mean, people. It's just funny. I mean, just people forget about that with him, and it's just, he just, I mean, he threw for like 1,500 yards, but he had 11 touchdowns to six interceptions. But really, in '98 too, he went 1-6 with 0 touchdowns and 9 interceptions.
Ooh.
9 interceptions, 0 touchdowns. In 7 starts, you get 0 touchdowns.
That
I
might
feel
be
like you
the
and I could maybe get one of those junk time type of touchdowns.
right. You could get one. Yeah. I had put Roman Gabriel because he was their quarterback when they were really bad in the 70s, but I mean, I had forgotten all about Hoying. I mean, I guess in my mind it went from like Cunningham to Detmer, and I had forgotten all about the Hoying years.
Yes, the Hoying years. Yes, yeah, but yeah, the Detmer to McNabb.
Yeah. I mean, once again, that's a good point. I think you're swaying me with Hoying. I mean, Roman Gabriel was bad when they were there, but Roman Gabriel at least had a couple of good years as a quarterback. And I mean, so I mean, you make a good point. I think I got to go with Hoying just because they were so bad in those 2 years.
Yes, they were bad, and I mean, it's just one of these cases.
They probably
Oh,
should have
excuse
never
me.
started. They
Oh
should
yeah,
have stuck with
I'm
whatever
allergic. I'm
Detmer
allergic
brother
to.
they had.
Sorry, allergic to allergic to Bobby Hoying. Really.
Or all of these bad quarterbacks, really.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's just it's bad.
It is. Let's talk about let's list the Washington football team quarterbacks. Who did you have as your worst Washington football team quarterback?
So for me, I decided to go with Heath Schuler. This was a
Yeah.
guy again. He was touted as the guy. He was
Yeah.
touted. I mean, he was touted. I mean, he really was. He was touted as the guy.
He
To
certainly
be
was.
yeah. And he really did not have a good season. And really, I mean, he really was bad.
Very bad.
and yeah, I mean, it's just I feel like it's like a case too with these NFC East quarterbacks where it's just like they really have just like all these great quarterbacks, but then they just have like these one glaring quarterbacks, really.
Yeah, Heath Schuler was obviously a bad one. I went with Norm Snead because he had some really bad years for them when he started in like 1960 and 61. They went 1-12. I mean, they never had a winning season with him as a quarterback. His best season was 5-7. He went on to actually have a decent career, but it wasn't until he left the football team that he actually got good.
Yeah, it really wasn't. I agree with you. Yeah, he was very bad as far as record wise shows, and as far as with touchdowns, interceptions, it shows too. I mean, he threw his career high interceptions in he stood Washington with 27, so
Yeah.
in 63. So yeah, it's just you show it record wise. Actually, you kind of swayed me as well. Yeah, I may have to go with Norm Snead over Heath Schuler for me.
Yeah, I mean, at least Heath Schuler only sucked for one season, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, he's stuck for like a couple of seasons, but yeah, it's definitely one of those like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Heath Schuler. I'd forgotten about him and how bad he was, though. So that's a good point too.
Yes, he definitely was very, very, very bad.
All right, let's move on to the AFC. Let's keep it in the East. Let's go AFC East. And let's start it off with the Buffalo Bills.
Buffalo Bills for me, it has to be JP Lossman. I think people really forgot about him as well. And it's just, yeah, he was supposed to be, this person at Buffalo really, but it's just like, he started 1-7, 7-9, 2-5 really. And he goes 8-8, 9-14, 4-6 as far as, I mean, it was just this like mediocre as mediocre could get. I mean, I know he threw for 3,000 yards, but in 2006, but that was probably a lot of those junk time type of things as well. So, I mean,
Right.
really, I mean, until Josh Allen really came on, that really was like kind of like a wasteland really for 20 years for them after Jim Kelly retired and then after everybody else.
I thought Tyrod Taylor was okay.
Yeah, Tyrod Taylor is okay. I know it led him to like the playoffs really, but that really was kind of like the shining moment before they really got Josh Allen.
Right. JP Lossman was awful. Even after that, Trent Edwards was awful. Fitzmagic was bad there. But I went with a guy named Dennis Shaw. And he was their quarterback from 1970 to 72. And in that time, he went 8-32 on the record. And he threw 35 TDs and 68 picks.
Yeah, it's
almost
just
a 2-to-1 pick to touchdown ratio.
Yeah, it's a bad case. Yeah, and it's just, yeah, the Buffalo Bills in the early 70s, really, except for OJ Simpson. I mean, really, I mean, That's all you watch for, really. You watched for OJ back
Right,
at that time, and
exactly.
and everybody else was just like, you know.
Right, exactly. And I mean, the Bills were bad in that era because of Dennis Shaw. Once they went with Joe Ferguson, they got a little bit better.
Oh yeah, they got
Uh,
they got a little bit better with Ferguson as well. So
and then they went to Kelly, and then it went okay. You can't really pick Doug Flutie. Todd Collins in '97 was bad. I mean, Alex Van Pelt in '01 was bad. Drew
yeah.
Bledsoe was okay there, but I mean, once again, they've had some bad guys. EJ Manuel was another one who was also bad there, but
Oh yeah, good old EJ.
amazing how many of these quarterbacks we're listing went to Florida State. Him and Weeky and some of these other guys that were just really bad.
Yeah, it
Christian
really is.
Ponder,
Yeah.
Florida State guy. And we could have
Exactly,
easily
yes.
listed another Florida guy, a state guy with Jameis Winston too for Tampa Bay.
Oh yeah, we could have easily have done that. Yeah, I mean, we could have easily have done that as well. So it's just really just a nice little drop off for a lot of these people.
Let's talk about Miami.
So the Miami Dolphins, I mean, this was really tough for me, but I decided to go like anybody like post Dan Marino. Really, except for like Chad Pennington and then like a couple of years with like Ryan Tannehill. Really, I mean, it is really has been kind of like it's really kind of like a cop out. I mean, it was just we had like Jay Fiedler. I mean, I guess Jay
AJ
Fiedler, you did
Feely.
let him. We had Gus Farrat for 15 games. I mean, we had the Dante Culpepper, Joey Arrington run. We had
Cleo
Cleo Lemon. I mean, it's just Chad Henne, right? You know, the early
I
parts of
picked
Ryan
Henne.
It
I picked
Yeah.
Teddy, but your cop out's pretty good.
Yeah, Jay Cutler, you know, Ryan Fitzpatrick as well. I mean, it could be too with Tua. We don't know with the way he played right now. I mean, if the way he played, if he played like he played in 2020, we could be talking about Tua as one of these worst starting quarterbacks as well.
Yeah, they've had a lot of duds.
They really have had a lot of yeah. Sage Rosenfeld started a couple of games. AJ Feely started a couple of games at 04 too with them.
Yeah,
Brian Greasy
AJ
started a
Feely's one of
game
those.
too. Ray Lucas. I mean, really, that post Dan Marino quarterbacks for
Don
the Miami
Beck went
Dolphins.
0-4 there.
Yeah. I'm just looking up at all the, you know, oh man, David Heward played a couple of games, you know.
Damon Heward actually won some games there. That's crazy.
Yeah, John Beck. Remember John Beck?
John Beck, BYU guy. Yeah.
BYU guy.
He
I
went
know.
0-4.
A good old Tyler Thigpen too. I mean, it's just,
Trent
I know
Green went
it's one
0-5
start,
there.
but
Let's not forget about Trent Green going 0-5 there too.
yeah, going 0-5 too. Yeah, and you have Matt Moore too. I mean, this is
Man.
it is bad.
Yeah. I think you were right to cop out there. I didn't realize Brock Osweiler started 5 games there and went 2-3.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Oh my god. And yeah, Josh
Might have been right
Rosen
to
too.
cut.
Yeah, Josh Rosen too. He was probably one of the biggest NFL, probably one of the biggest busts in the past 20 years. I think he's a bigger bust than than somebody we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of buzz. I'm looking at the win-loss records right now. Rick Norton was the guy who started for them when they were an expansion franchise, but he gets a pass for them being an expansion franchise. He went.
I'll give you a pass a
1-10.
little bit, yeah, because the
But
expansion.
like,
Yeah,
I mean, look at this. Cleo Lemon 1-7 as a starter there. I mean, they've had some bad quarterbacks there.
it is bad. It is a bad, like really like post Dan Marino. It is bad.
I think you got to go with the cop out there. I think that's fair.
Yeah, you got to go with the cop out, like
'Cause
post
even
Dan Marino. I
Tannehill,
mean,
like, yeah,
They had it. They had a bridge
Wasn't
with
good,
they had a bridge with Damon Woolley, you know, from Bob Greasy to Marino, you know, David
Right.
Woolley a little bit, but he did
He's
lead them to like a
serviceable.
playoffs, you know. I mean,
he was
it's-
serviceable.
yeah, but then it's just then you go from Marino to and you go from Marino to really just a wasteland, really.
Yeah,
And that's the reason why the Miami Dolphins really haven't been a relevant franchise in 20 years, really. It's because of post Marino.
right. Absolutely. That's a good point.
And really, I mean, really, their best season probably has been like 2008, really, with Chad Pennington as quarterback.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
and then that
Oh.
fell off the wagon.
Yeah. As I said, even Tannehill's years there weren't that good. So, like his
Yeah.
best years are with the Titans.
Oh yeah, his best season. Yeah, his best season's with the Titans too. Yeah, so that's just really really bad.
All right, let's talk about the Patriots.
This was actually like really really tough for me. You know,
Well, you had to go back in a long
yeah,
time
you
to get
you
even
really
anyone
have to.
that was-
Yeah,
because I mean, the last, I mean, even Bledsoe to Brady, I mean, even the spot starters they've had in there, Matt Castle was okay. I mean, Cam Newton, I think they still were what, 7-9 last year or something?
Yeah, they were 7-9, and yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to, you know what, I'm gonna have to go with Jim Plunkett. I mean, he was the number one overall pick. You know, he was destined to be the savior and something like that. But really, I mean, it's just 6-8, 3-11, 5-9. His best season was probably 7-7, and then he went 2-3. I mean, it's just really, I mean, his touchdowns to interceptions were bad. I mean, especially in
Yeah.
72, he went 8-25 as far as with touchdowns to interceptions. So I'm gonna have to go with Jim Plunkett. And yeah, he was drafted first overall and was supposed to be the savior. But then we talked about it like afterwards, like the whole after effect too. He goes on to Oakland and LA, and actually, or to the Raiders organization, actually win a couple of Super Bowls.
Right. I mean, he would eventually have a better career, but yeah, his time in New England was not good. I went with Hugh Millen. He was a quarterback in 92 and 91 and 92 before Bledsoe signed there. And he was really bad, and they were really bad, and they got the number one pick because of how bad he was. But that said, I mean, his one season as the full starter, he went through for 3,000 yards with 9 touchdowns and 18 interceptions. And I mean, at that time, he was only the 5th time that someone had thrown for 3,000 yards in a season, but he was throwing way too many picks. He wasn't good, and the team wasn't good while he was there.
Yes. Oh man, I forgot about Hugh Millen, man. Thank you for mentioning that to me. Yeah, Hugh Millen definitely probably is like a better pick really than Jim Plunkett. I guess. Yeah.
I don't know. Plunkett was bad though too.
Plunkett was
4
bad.
years
Yeah.
of bad versus like 2 years of bad for.
Yeah, and his career gets helped a little bit because of with this stint as a Raiders. So I think that really helps his career rather than
Right.
probably people mention him as a bust.
But we got to talk about his career with the Patriots, and as a Patriot, he was bad.
Yeah, as a Patriot, yeah, he was bad.
So it's definitely worth noting.
Yes,
I mean, that's a tough toss-up one, and I'm sure we're gonna have a lot to talk about with our next team too, the New York Jets.
the New York Jets. I mean, really, I mean, you want to do Sanchez or something like that, but he did lead them to 2 AFC Championship games. I know it was he did go to New England and did beat Tom Brady in a playoff game, so that does help a little bit.
He had one butt fumble, doesn't take away the fact that he was decent, at least for them.
Yeah, at least decent. Yeah, the first part, at least the first part of the first couple of years. I know it was definitely a downfall, but for me, I'm gonna have to go with a guy named Brownie Nagel. Yeah, he started really 1 year. It was 1992, and he went 3-10. And he threw 7 touchdowns to 17 picks. Really, I mean, and he threw for 2,200 yards. But that really was probably all this junk time as well. And really, I mean, it's just really, I mean, he played for the Jets, for like 3 years, and that was like I think he was like a backup quarterback, but he started the majority of the year. So you got to put it there.
I mean, this might be a little bit of recency bias, but I went with Sam Darnold. He has sucked. And I mean, he sucked for them. Obviously, he was a 3rd pick overall. So once again, you have that expectation factor coming in too. And I mean, his interceptions to touchdown ratio isn't as bad as some of the other people on this list. He's actually thrown more touchdowns than interceptions, but he's also fumbled 20 times. Lost 9 of them, but he fumbles the ball a lot.
Right. Yeah. You know what I thought about too? I thought we could probably put like Geno Smith too, because I mean he did get knocked out. Bad. Yeah, that was bad too, and he got knocked out as well. And it just yeah, and especially that 13 he actually had a decent year. He was 8-8. But yeah, but it really fell off at 14, 3-10, 13 touchdowns to 13 picks in 13 games. So basically, you're throwing a touchdown and an interception in the game, and that's not good, especially with the wide open offenses that you had, especially at that time.
I still think Darnold was worse than Geno though.
The Jets have had like an interesting of just nothing but bad quarterbacks, really. I mean, it's just right. I guess you could probably put like Bubby Brister in there,
Once again, you're talking about Chad Pennington being their best starter, maybe Sanchez in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
What does that say?
Very, very bad. Yeah. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Wow. Awful.
They are very, very awful.
All right, let's talk about let's go over to the AFC South now, and let's talk about the low-hanging fruit of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Oh man, like Jacksonville was really, really, kind of, I kind of thought about it. I mean, it's just like you got to go with the. It's very, very interesting for me. I mean, it's just because they actually did have like a good QB to start out with Brunell and all that.
Yep,
Yeah, but I mean, you got to go with Blaine Gabbert. Really, I mean,
you do.
he was a bad quarterback.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, he was a big, I mean, it just he really was. He was a bad quarterback, and somehow he's still playing right now, which is fascinating to me.
Amazing.
It is amazing. Yeah, in 2011 he went 4-10, and then he went 1-9 in his 2012 start as well with 12. I mean, he did have more touchdowns than interceptions, but really, I mean, you could count like the win-loss column. He really wasn't getting it done.
He wasn't. And in his final season there, he started 3 games and he threw 1 touchdown against 7 picks.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. That was, he just, he was supposed to be like this savior as well.
Right.
I know he's a Mizzou grad, so that's probably
okay.
a little bit painful for you
It's not
as well,
painful
but
for me.
yeah, he was just, he really was bad. And, I mean, we could have gone with,
And here's the thing of it too. Like, he came out of Missouri after his junior year, and you could see in his final bowl game that he played there that he wasn't ready. He was getting eaten alive by an Iowa defense, so he was making bad decisions. He needed one more season, and somehow now he has a Super Bowl ring because he backed up Brady last year.
Yes, this is why sports sucks sometimes because of that. Yeah, this is why they yeah.
All right, let's talk about the Houston Texans next.
Oh my God! I mean, this is kind of like a low hanging fruit too. I mean, it's just they really have had just nothing but bad after bad quarterbacks, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just this is just. I mean, I guess you got to go with. And they have been an expansion team. I mean, really, it's been a franchise that really hasn't been around for almost 20 years, but I'm gonna have to go with their first overall pick. I mean, you got to go with David Carr. I mean, it was just he had a great season with at Fresno State, really that kind of helped propel him to be the first overall pick. But then it just really didn't came into fruition as well. I mean, he went 4-12, 3-8, 7-9, 2-14, 6-10. I mean, it's just losing record. And he threw. There were a couple of seasons where he threw more touchdowns and picks, but really, I mean, the most touchdowns he threw was 16, and he was sacked a lot too. I mean, he was
right.
It was definitely the most sacked quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I think that obviously hurts David Carr's legacy a little bit. I mean, he came in, was put in a tough situation from the get, but I mean, you can't really go in another direction here. I mean, the only other people that are on this list are people that have maybe gotten spot starts here and there, like Tom Savage and Ryan Mallett. Aside from that, I mean, David Carr was bad and consistently bad for a long time.
Yeah, they were very bad. I mean, it's just they just were not very good.
They weren't. He wasn't. I mean, it's that simple.
Yeah. It's just a very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts.
This was kind of tough. I mean, I guess with the way. I mean, it's just I mean, it's what
I went with a guy named Mike Pagel.
Oh, Mike Pagel. Oh, Oh, so I decided to go a little bit more recent. I decided to go with but this is the guy because of the Manning injury. He was kind of forced in, and that was Curtis Painter.
Yeah,
he went 0-8. I mean, he went 0-8. But that Indianapolis team was a very bad team, really. I mean, really, it was Manning and really nobody else. And then obviously Manning had the surgery and didn't play the entire year, so. Yeah, so they really had to do a ton of backup stuff that time.
See, I did Pagel because he went 15-31, and Painter was doomed to fail because he was filling in for Peyton Manning's shoes. Pagel, like I said, anything across the board you look at, he was bad. 15-31 record, 50% completion percentage. He went 39 through 39 touchdowns to 47 picks. So I mean, like, he was bad all across the board any way you slice it.
Yeah, it was very bad for him. Yeah,
And
and we
then
got
when
to
they
include
didn't,
too with those 2 Baltimore years too. The 2
yeah,
Baltimore Colt years.
yeah,
Those count as well. So
they
yeah,
do.
and he was kind of a journeyman as well. And yeah, he just wasn't a very he was just like that prototypical journeyman quarterback, really.
He was bad, and like I said, he struggled mightily there, and he was stuck being their quarterback a couple more seasons because they didn't end up getting John Elway. So they were supposed to have Elway replace him, and then they couldn't even have that.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just something. Yeah, he kind of left off with his foot, or something like that. I mean, it really was, kind of crazy. I mean, it's just, yeah, you got to kind of think about that.
Right. I mean, like I said, Painter was doomed to fail. He was awful, but I said, I don't think there was anything he could have done in that situation.
No. Yeah. I mean, it's just, it is kind of tough. Yeah. And he was really led to a bad thing.
All right. Who do you got next? I got Tennessee next. And I want
What do you have for Tennessee? Oh, you have Jake Locker. Ooh. Okay. Yeah.
Basically,
Jake
yeah, I mean,
Locker
here
is
is this guy who was supposed to, like you said, be the savior, 8th pick overall, got hurt all the time, and then really just kind of like gave up, basically.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you on that. Yeah, if we're going like recent, like Tennessee Titans, well, definitely with Jake Locker, yeah, because he was a really good quarterback for Washington as well, and really, I guess his most famous thing really was throwing the ball up in the air to get a 15-yard penalty.
Yeah.
They kind of called for like a celebration or something like that. I mean, really, I guess it's probably Locker's most famous moment, really. I mean, it's just, yeah, he was built to be the savior. And yeah, 2012, I mean, he did have a winning record at 13, but yeah, I agree with you. He was hurt all the time.
He was hurt all the time. I mean, yeah, 13 was his best year, but like I said, you also have to consider him a bust because of him being hurt all the time. And
Right.
he came back the following year and threw way more picks than in touchdowns. And so, I mean, he's a guy who, aside from the 13 season, was really bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even the 13 season, he only played 7 games.
Yeah. He just, yeah, he was built to be the savior, but I agree with you. Yeah. Just injuries really kind of caught up with him and just wasn't a very good quarterback and just couldn't get anything going.
Excellent. Let's move on to the AFC Central now.
Or the AFC North.
Sorry.
The Central. We're stuck in 90. Yeah, we're 95 right now, right?
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, there's a lot of bad quarterbacks here, so let's.
There definitely are, yeah, especially with two franchises,
Yeah,
which we'll get to.
Let's start with Baltimore because I feel like Baltimore's kind of the obvious one.
Yeah, their worst one really has to be Kyle Bowler. I mean, this was a guy, drafted to basically be the savior and really help jumpstart this offense, really, and yeah, he. It turns out, the guy he kind of started ahead was actually the better quarterback than him, in Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, did he start in front of Rodgers?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't.
Oh, Rodgers was in 05. Kyle Bowler was in like 04.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought you meant at college. Yeah, I'm sorry. My bad.
Yeah.
Okay, my bad. All right.
Yeah.
In any event, I mean, Bowler awful. I mean,
2003 draft. Yeah. So, yeah, Rodgers started in 04 and in 05. Yeah, Rodgers started in 04. Yeah. So, so Aaron Rodgers backed him up, really.
Right. He did. And I mean, you look at Bowler, he had 3 seasons as the full starter, 04, 05, and 07. And I mean, he was bad in all of those seasons, no playoffs. And then they bring in Steve McNair the one year that he wasn't the starter. And boom, just like that. I mean, they go to the playoffs. So obviously he was the problem. He goes 20-22 over his career there.
But I give it to the benefit, because
they had a great defense the whole time.
Yeah, they had a great defense. Yeah, I give the benefit, but it's just because of the defense. But really, he really didn't spark that offense as well. I mean, he threw for 1,200 yards, 7 TDs, 9 interceptions. Really the one season he started, I mean, he went 9-7, but he only threw for 2,500 yards and 13 touchdowns and 11 picks. I mean, really, that was a team that really ran the ball and played defense. Really, I mean, it's just
Right.
I mean, I guess we couldn't really put Trent Dilfer on this list really
No.
because
He won a
he
Super
actually
Bowl
did. He
with
won a
them.
Super Bowl. Yeah. So as well as something like that as well. But yeah, I'm gonna have to go with that on that one.
Kyle Bowler for sure.
Kyle Bowler for sure. I mean, it's just and yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just a guy
Kyle
that's
Bowler.
really, I know he could say he probably have a winning record, but it's just like, yeah, it was because of the defense, really.
It really
We know
was.
it. It really was.
All right, let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals.
So the Cincinnati Bengals, I mean, it's just, I mean, that's just a team that really just
Yeah, a lot of
has had a history of bad quarterbacks as well. But I think I'm going to go with the worst of the worst, and that's Akili Smith. Really, I mean, this is a guy really that just, I mean, he was. We're probably going to talk. We're going to talk about a guy probably for the next division as well. So I mean, he was the prototype. Really, it just didn't function well. I mean, he started 4 games, went 1-3 in '99. That was his rookie year, but then he went 2-9 and starts as well. 3 TDs to 6 picks. I mean, he threw for 1,200 yards in those 11 games. But yeah, I mean, it was just bad for him as well. I mean, and the guy just couldn't function. And John Kitna really kind of took over for him. You're bad when you get replaced by John Kitna.
I mean, Akili Smith was bad, but I don't think he ever got like a full season to try and show what he could do. So I went with Jeff Blake, and I went with Jeff Blake because he was basically their starting quarterback throughout the entire 90s and never once led them to a playoff game. And here he is. He goes 25-41. And like, he wasn't necessarily like the worst quarterback ever, but he was never a guy who could like lead them to a postseason. And I mean, he was a little bit of a dual threat, but at the end of the day, I mean, if you're their starting quarterback for like 7 straight seasons and you can't get to the playoffs, it's kind of bad.
It is kind of bad, and we could go with too with David Klingler as well. I mean, it's just that he's a guy who got sacked a lot too, and he went 3-10, 93. I mean, he went 0-7 in 94 with the. I mean, and it's just, yeah. I mean, we really could have just done 90s. The Cincinnati Bengals, their 90s quarterbacks, really.
Pretty much, yeah.
Post Boomer Esiason, yeah.
Post 1991, those years though.
Yeah, even though, yeah. I mean, it's just, yeah. We could have just said that. Any quarterback that started in the 90s for the Cincinnati Bengals.
You really could have. They were bad even in the 90s. Like, I mean,
yeah. It's a team really that's had really a lot of. That's been really stable the past 20 years when you really kind of think about it. I mean, yeah, they really haven't had success as far as with like playoff wise, but it's just like with Andy Dalton and Carson Palmer, they really kind of stabled that quarterback position, which really was a wasteland for them for like 10, 15 years.
Absolutely. Wow.
You got to go with that.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a good way to go with it. I could go with that.
Yep.
Let's talk about the Cleveland Browns.
Okay.
Lots of choices here.
Actually, can we wait on the Browns? Can we just do the
Pittsburgh?
Yeah, let's do Pittsburgh. Yeah.
All right. Who'd you have for Pittsburgh?
For Pittsburgh, I mean, I'm gonna have to go with Mark Malone, really. Yeah.
I went with Dick Shiner.
Not just because of the name, right?
He was also bad, but yeah,
yeah.
The name I wanted to say Dick Shiner on air too. But yeah.
I get away with it with actually saying the word Dick Shiner.
Yeah. I mean, Dick Shiner was led them to a 1-13 record. He was really bad. And I mean, he was awful. He wasn't good.
He was bad. And those late 60s Pittsburgh teams are one of the worst teams, I guess, really. I mean, it's just, and same with Mark Malone. I mean, those 80s, those mid to late 80s teams were bad too. I mean, he went 6-3 in 84, but then like 3-5, 6-8, 6-6, 2-6, really just couldn't get above that.
1-13, baby.
Yeah, you'll take that over 1-13. Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, with 6-19 as far as with and this was a strike year too. So I mean, he went 6-6 with 6 touchdowns and 19 interceptions in a strike year, folks. Like, wow, that's bad. When you're throwing 19 picks in a strike year, that's bad.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely bad. I mean, they had these 2 stretches really where they were awful. And Dick Shiner went 3-24 in his 2 seasons. So
Yeah.
That's why I went with him. But I mean, once again, Malone, obviously those late 80s teams or mid to late 80s teams were definitely a struggle for them too.
Yes. Yeah. I think you can't go either wrong with either Dick Shiner or Mark Malone. Yeah, he was supposed to be the guy that really kind of backed up Bradshaw, or be the kind of saving grace for Bradshaw, but he really didn't come.
He didn't. All right.
All right. I'm ready to do the
Cleveland?
Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
And I'm doing another cop out. Here.
Yep.
Basically every quarterback that every starting quarterback that they really kind of had, post,
Except for Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, maybe except for Baker Mayfield, but it's just like every quarterback like post like coming back to the NFL. I mean, it's just like, just think about that. You have Doug Peterson, Tim Couch, Spurgeon Wynn, Kelly Holcomb, I know Jeff Garcia, Luke McCown, Trent
Derek Anderson
Dilfer.
was okay.
What?
Derek Anderson was okay.
Derek Anderson was okay. I mean, he had that one good year, but then really fell out. Brady Quinn, Bruce
Colt
Gronkowski, Colt McCoy, Jake Delhomme. I forgot Seneca Wallace started a couple of games for them. Brandon Weeden, Jason
Charlie
Campbell,
Fry.
Brian Hoyer, Johnny Manziel, Josh McCown,
RG3
Cody
started
Kessler.
5 games for him.
I forgot RG3 was part of the Browns. Deshaun Kaiser, Kevin Hogan. I mean, it really post. I know Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, it is a wait and see with Baker as well. I mean, 2020 may actually have helped him a little bit, but we'll
2020 alone is enough to make him the best quarterback on this list.
Yes, 2020 alone. I agree with you. Yeah, even ahead of Derek Anderson.
Yeah,
even ahead of Derek. Yeah, so that was basically like a vast wasteland for Cleveland Browns quarterback.
I mean, it certainly was. I went with Johnny Football, but I mean, you could I mean, at the end of the day, it's easy to cop out on this one. Deshaun Kaiser was awful. Like, all of these guys were really bad quarterbacks.
Oh yeah.
I'm with you. I think we need to cop out and just say all of them, but I went with Johnny Football. Just because he was supposed to be the guy who could never get his head on straight and never actually like played a full season, despite the fact that he was supposed to be the guy.
Yes, he was supposed to be the guy, but it never came out.
Never did. All right, one division left. Let's go to the AFC West. Who do you got? Let's start with the Chargers.
Let's start with the Chargers. You got to go with the big one, and that's Mr. Ryan Leaf there.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is the guy that was drafted ahead of Peyton Manning, or not ahead of Peyton Manning, but he was drafted second, behind Peyton Manning. And he was supposed to be like the guy, like he was the guy that really had the tools really to be a quarterback, and everybody but he was a guy that really didn't have his head on straight as well. And he really had a bunch of problems as well. And you saw it with like, in 98, I mean, he goes 3-6, and then 2000, he goes 1-8 really. And those Charger teams, late 90s, early 2000s were bad, like LaDainian Tomlinson era. Those teams were bad. Yeah. And it's just, 2 touchdowns to 15 picks in 1998. I mean, that's just like a bad ratio, even for a rookie quarterback as well. So it is. And he went 11 touchdowns to 18 picks. He was so bad, they didn't even start him in 99. Really. I'm looking up stats for him, and it's just, he doesn't have anything.
Yeah. I mean, he was awful. I mean, his name is synonymous with the bust of a draft. And if your name is synonymous with the bust of a draft, you're also probably the worst quarterback in your franchise's history. I was trying to be all controversial and pick Phillip Rivers because he always found a way to blow it for them. But he at least led them to a playoffs a bunch of times, even though he was always kind of never able to get him over the hump, and did have this stacked team with LT and still finding ways to lose. But at the end of the day, it's Ryan Leaf. It's Ryan.
Oh yeah, it is Ryan Leaf. Yeah, he is definitely like synonymous with like a bust as well. So I mean, it's just crazy to think about that.
It definitely is, for sure. Now let's talk a little bit about let's go to the Chiefs next.
Okay, so the Chiefs were very interesting because I was kind of thinking about that. What?
Yeah, they've had some good quarterbacks.
Yeah, they've had some decent quarterbacks, and it's just like, and they've had some like good like 1 year wonders or something like that, and and it's just it really was like a crazy type of thing as well. But I'm gonna have to go back a little bit. I'm gonna have to go with Todd Blackledge. I mean, he was part of the
Mhm.
he's part of that '83 class as well, and yeah, I mean, he was a guy drafted ahead of Marino and Jim Kelly and those guys. So I mean, it's very, very interesting as far as with that. And yeah, it really couldn't get anything going. I mean, really his best year really was '86. He went 5-3 with 10 touchdowns and 6 interceptions and, threw for 1,200 yards. I mean, really, and it just was all downhill. Like he really just couldn't get things going. Like he was a 500 quarterback at best.
Yeah, he was definitely a struggle for sure. I mean, definitely he was my second choice. I went with Mike Livingston. He was a little bit before Blackledge, but I mean, he was on their Super Bowl team, but then took over after Len Dawson left. He made 75 starts for the Chiefs, never once making the playoffs. And I mean, they were really struggling during Livingston's years as a starter there. And
Yeah.
another guy who finished with more interceptions than touchdowns.
Yeah, and I was kind of looking too. I mean, we could, I mean, but he didn't really start that much too. Like he kind of started and stopped at a different thing. We could have talked about Brody Croyle as well.
Brody
I mean,
Croyle was
yeah,
bad.
he was awful as far
He
as
was
with
never
that.
their full starter. It felt
Yeah,
like.
he was never their full starter, so that's the reason why too. And like Blackledge, like he would start, and he played more than like 8 games, so that helped
Right.
us, with the bulk of the season. So that's the reason why I went with him.
Yeah, I mean, Brody Croyle never started more than 6 games in a season. Don't get me wrong, he sucked, but
Right. Oh yeah, he did, but yeah, it was definitely one of those things.
Brody Croyle is the only quarterback in Chiefs history to start at least 3 games as a quarterback and not win a single game. So that's just
Yeah, there's a start there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Raiders or Broncos next?
Let's do Broncos.
See the Broncos. All right, for the Broncos, I had Paxton Lynch.
Really, he only
Yeah.
started one time.
Still the worst.
Still the worst.
Don't care.
Okay.
Then I felt like he started more than that.
I think he started 2 games. I think he played in like 2 games, and that's
he started
about it.
4 games, yeah. But he was the guy that we traded up to get with the #1 pick. And I mean, once again, there's a lot of guys. Anyone after Peyton Manning could have been a cop out, but I mean,
yeah, I
Who do
know
you got?
exactly. Yeah. Anything after Peyton Manning, yeah, could have been a cop out.
they had Craig Morton. I mean, they had Elway. I mean, they had some guys. So
They had some
did you go?
guys. I'm gonna have to go with Steve Tenzi. Steve Tenzi is a guy, late 60s, early 70s. Really, I mean, another Florida State quarterback that we're talking about here. I mean, he went 3-9, 3-3, 4-7-1. I mean, it's just here's a guy who threw 17 interceptions and 12 interceptions. I mean, it was bad. And just like my parents always joke about like Steve Tenzi, Steve Tenzi, that it's just like, oh yeah, Steve Tenzi tried to commit suicide, but the bullet was intercepted. So, that's bad when you're getting that type of joke,
Oh God. Wow.
Yes, that's bad if you're getting that type of joke, So I mean, it just, yeah. So I think overall, I think he's worse than Paxton. I just feel like Paxton didn't play that much, and I know he was drafted to be the savior, but at least we didn't play him,
Right, but you don't draft a guy in the first round.
First round, yeah, and don't save him. Yeah, he could actually be probably one of the like worst first round busts, really.
Well, definitely for the Broncos, at the very least.
Yes. Oh yeah.
I mean, obviously those late 60s teams were terrible. So once again, you're probably right on this. That it was Steve Tenzi, but I mean,
it could have been him or Steve Ramsey. I think as far as with that.
But I just that Paxton Lynch, like, just because like they could have had Dak Prescott and they could have had better players and they picked him.
I know, but it's just John Elway's love of really tall quarterbacks. I mean, it's just he just loves those really tall quarterbacks.
He definitely does.
He definitely does. I mean, it's just I do have to give the new GM credit. At least he's having a plan and kind of sticking to it,
Yep.
Instead of like, oh, let's go everything on the fly.
Let's get this guy. Yeah.
Let's get this guy.
Yeah.
Oh man. And
All
now we
right,
go to the vast wasteland that is the Raiders.
the Raiders. I mean, for me, once again, I've been factoring in the expectation, and once again, if you're drafted as the first overall pick, there's a certain expectation, and that is the case for Jamarcus Russell.
That is my pick as well. Like that is just clear cut number one. Like as soon as I thought, I'm like, okay, Jamarcus is number one.
Yeah,
Really, I mean,
they've had some bad quarterbacks since Rich Gannon left, but man,
yeah. Yeah, they really have had some. Yeah, it's just like Kerry Collins. I mean, it really has been bad. I mean,
it's been bad. But Jamarcus Russell, once again, drafted to be the savior, more interceptions than touchdowns. He checks all the boxes that I've had for everyone on my list this whole time. And like I said, his best season was 08, and his best season was 13 touchdowns in 15 games. That's his best.
oh, oh yeah. I mean, really, like I mean, we could actually probably go post Rich Gannon, I guess, with this thing. I mean, you got to think 03 with like Rick Meyer, Rich Gannon, Marcus Tuiasosopo, Kerry Collins, Andrew Walter, and Aaron Brooks, Josh McCown, Dante Culpepper.
Right.
I mean, it's Jason Campbell.
Bad.
Like, I mean, even even the Carson Palmer years, he was bad.
Well, they got like the worst of Palmer too. And like,
as well. Yeah. And then you had, Terrell Pryor, Matt McGloin, Matt Flynn.
Right.
I mean, it's
even Derek Carr's kind of been a disappointment.
Yeah, he has been kind of a disappointment as well. He really just had, it's crazy how much he's actually has been as part of the team. Really. I mean, it's
right. He still has a losing record and has led them to the playoffs one time.
I know. Yeah. He's been kind of a disappointment as well. So, I mean, it's just, it really just has been kind of a wasteland, but Jamarcus is the worst. I mean, he is successful. That is. He
is the worst. He's worse than Bruce Gradkowski.
He is definitely. Oh man, that was fun. Yeah, that was great. Time. Yeah, good time.
All right. Well, it was good. We hope you enjoyed this list. We hope you'll join us next week. We're going to preview some college football and get excited for the start of football season.
Yes, it's back, baby. It is back. Football season is back. I'm excited.
All right. We can't wait. We thank you for watching this episode. We hope you go back, watch all of our other episodes, like us on Twitter, and be sure to check out the SP and Bushy Show every week right here on YouTube.
All right. Thank you. Peace.